The 2024-25 Premier League campaign is on the horizon. In preparation, we're previewing every single team and discussing how they'll shape up over the next campaign. We take a look at the transfer business conducted by the teams so far and offer suggestions of who else they should move for before the season gets started. Today we talk about Crystal Palace. They had a phenomenal end to last season under Oliver Glasner, however carrying momentum from that may be difficult with key players departing. In this video we discuss whether Palace can hold on to their stars and how they can replace Michael Elise. This is our 2024-25 season preview for Crystal Palace. Alright, let's talk about Crystal Palace then. We like to start these previews by looking back over last season, and for Palace, it was a season of two halves, I think, is the way to put it best. That first half of the season under Hodgson was very disappointing, and they looked like they may well be dragged to a relegation scrap. Then Glasner came in, the revolution started, and what an end to the season they had.
I mean, yeah, it felt necessary for Palace, it really did. We've talked about for the last couple of years how strong that Palace side was and how managers like Roy Hodgson were wasting away that young talent and weren't using what was such a good team, wasn't taking advantage of such high quality players. Finally though, bringing in Glasner, a high quality manager, and I mean it was a revitalised Crystal Palace side, shot up the table. They were absolutely brilliant. His first game against Burnley absolutely battered them, and we all sat here went, wow, how good are Palace? How good is Glasner? We did a video on it back at the time after that game going, this man is ridiculous. He is going to take this side up the league. That's exactly what he did. And as you say, a massive, massive congratulations really to Palace and Glasner for turning their season around.
Yeah, it seems to be a theme at Palace at the moment, because if you take your minds back to the season before last, that was the season that Vieira had the helm and they had a really difficult run, and then Hodgson came in at the end of the season, let Elise and Eze play, and they played some really good football. So it does feel like if Palace could just have a good start this season, well, they might win the league based 100%. On their end of the season in recent years. 100% they're going to win the league.
Yeah, they got it.
Glasner, they did really well in the second half of the season. He came in, changed it tactically, as you say, gave a bit more attacking freedom to those forward players, and it made a huge difference. As we saw at the end of the season with those results, they beat teams like Liverpool, they took the game to City in that 4-2 game, a very exciting match. So they've shown now they can mix it with some strong teams, and arguably, I mean, obviously they've lost a lot this summer, we're going to talk about that now, but they do have a very, very strong team.
Yeah, 100%, and that is something they're going to need to build on. Yes, they've lost some things, but that's kind of what happens. But this is a big test now for Palace, is how they adjust to those big losses. They've got to replace them off the pitch, but on the pitch they've got to make up for that loss of performance, and I think they will. They've got to learn just how to work out how to solve the big gap that's been left in their team. And if they do that, I'm sure we're going to see another, really good season from Palace. And hopefully for Palace fans, it can be a good full season rather than keep having these cameos at the end where it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, very true. I think the paramount thing for them this window was to not lose all their stars. That's not exactly going very well at the moment. Let's start with looking at their outgoings. First up, Michael Elise, £50 million to Bayern Munich. Obviously a fantastic player. He's been touted with a lot of big clubs. What do Palace lose now without Elise? And just how big an impact does this have?
I mean, I think he's an incredible player, and we kind of knew that a big move was coming for him. And obviously, as you say, Palace do lose a lot. He's an incredible player, a brilliant, brilliant creator, but also he's one of those players that if Palace are struggling, he can pick the ball up, he can grab the game by the scruff of its neck, and completely flip the scoreline. I mean, we've seen some incredible free kicks, some incredible strikes from him over the his Palace career. He's been absolutely brilliant at times for Palace, and sometimes he's one of those players you just have to admire sometimes and just go wow. When he's got the ball at his feet, knocking it past people, playing at his A game, he is a phenomenal footballer. It is a big loss for Crystal Palace.
Yeah, definitely. I think, though, at Bayern Munich, he's going to have a really good season. Brilliant. I think what we saw at Bayern last season was they lacked service to Kane. Elise is going to come in and provide that massively. And I think he'll take the Bundesliga by storm, probably the Champions League as well. I think he'll be really solid for them. It's a big loss for Palace, as you say. I think they lose a lot of their attacking width, a lot of their creativity in those areas, and a lot of their goal scoring ability. He is a really good goal scorer as well. So they are going to lose that massively. The pressing matter now is that Eze's also looking to potentially leave. Tottenham have been rumoured to be interested. Now, there's nothing concrete yet and nothing confirmed, but it does look like they may be edging towards Eze going as well, in which case that's a lot to replace there, because Eze and Elise departing, obviously they can replace those players, and they are, in a sense, going to replace those with players who could have a similar ceiling, but they're not at the same level as those Eze's and Elise's yet, and it is going to take time for that to work. The other outgoing is David Oza on loan to Derby. I really like this loan move. I think a lot of people, all the Palace fans I've spoken to, are really positive about David Oza and think he's going to be a really talented player. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see how he gets on at Derby next season. I think Derby still in League One, or are they into the Championship? I can't remember how they got on last season. But
Still in League One, I think.
yeah, I thought so. But yeah, that'll be really interesting to see how they handle that. They'll be looking to push for the Championship this season, and he'll be a key part of that. You'd like to hope. Let's have a look at incomings then. So first up, they signed Chadi Riyad from Real Betis. I really like this signing. A young left-footed centre half. He's Spanish. He plays really good football. And at Betis last season, he really started to show his quality. I think that he's only 21. He's going to be a nice backup to Chris Richards, or rotation option with Chris Richards in that left centre half spot. I think it's a really good signing. Yeah,
definitely, and that's the thing. I think centre halves were pretty imperative for Crystal Palace. It's good that they're bringing in another one just to keep rotation and to strengthen the depth at centre half, because they've got some high quality starters, but it's good to see them bolstering their ranks even below that.
Yeah, and I think he's started to play football now for Morocco as well. So he's playing his international games there. I think that's going to be really interesting to see if he can break into the first team, because it is very competitive, that Morocco side now. And yeah, that would be a really good thing for him. I think it looks like a good signing, 13 million. It's fairly low risk. Obviously, it's a big adaptation, the physicality in the Premier League from the physicality in La Liga, but I think he'll be able to cope with that, and his in-possession football looks really solid. So I think there's a lot to be positive about there. I think in this Glasner system, he's going to work really nicely. Yeah. Then a signing I'm really excited about, Daichi Kamada on a free from Lazio. Now, the big part of this is that Kamada has obviously played for Oliver Glasner at Frankfurt, so he's got that experience of playing with him, and I think the Japanese attacking midfielder is going to fit in really nice with this team. If they're looking for attacking midfielders who are goal-scoring, who are creative, who are energetic, compressed, Daichi Kamada really fits that.
Yeah, 100%. I really like this deal. It is a smart bit of business. It's an experienced player who's played in the top divisions in a couple countries. He knows the manager, he knows the system, and he's still playing very well. All for free. It makes a lot of sense for Palace. Clearly, it's a signing that Glasner wants. It's a signing that Glasner's got, and I think we could see a really strong campaign from Kamada.
Yeah, it didn't work out for him at Lazio, but as you say, returning to a manager with that familiarity is back, and I think a Palace side that will accommodate him nicely. And then up next, we've got another signing that hasn't been confirmed yet, but has been Fabrizio Romano. Here we go, all that stuff. So Ismaïla Sarr from Marseille, again around £13 million. I think this is a really interesting signing. What are your initial thoughts?
It is an intriguing one, because he's a decent player, and what we saw in the Premier League for Watford was pretty decent in a Watford side that, let's be honest, was terrible. Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't.
No, it was terrible.
Truly awful. But yeah, I think he's a decent player. Had a bit of a strange last couple of years. Doesn't really feel like he's been. I'm intrigued to see what he can bring. Do I think he's on the level? That Palace, he's definitely not on the Elise level. Let's be completely honest with that. I don't think.
But the thing is, they're very different moulds of players. Elise is an inside forward who wants to, drift inside, wants to create opportunities for others. Ismaïla Sarr's a bit more of a pacey touchline winger. I don't know if he's 100% what Glasner needs. My question mark with this signing is: are they looking at changing shape? Because they've got Ismaïla Sarr, who's more of a touchline winger. They've got Raksaki and Malcolm Aboye. I really struggle with pronouncing his name. But they've got those options that play right wing and a bit more wider than Elise is. And then they're looking at someone on the left-hand side who we're going to touch on in a moment. For me, it looks like they may well be looking at creating a bit more of width. I could see them going to a 4-2-3-1. I'd expect them to stay 3-4-3, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is a change there. If they don't change, Sarr's a really interesting tactical fit, because he's not really an attacking midfielder, in which case he is going to be playing a little bit wider than we've seen Elise play this season, or he's going to have to adapt to a new role. Both are plausible, because footballers can play different positions, surprisingly. And I don't think it's impossible that he does adapt to that role quite nicely. It's just a bit of an interesting tactical fit, but it's not a bad signing at all.
Yeah, it's one of those. I think Palace fans got to give him a chance. He could be a very good player. It may not work out. If it doesn't, I don't think it'll be a too big of a disappointment. But it'll be interesting to see how he fares.
Yeah, and they've brought in two players potentially to replace Elise. However, I think the perfect Elise replacement exists within the squad already. So let's go on over to the tactics board, the squad makeup screen. On that right-hand midfield role, we've got a few different players there. We've got Ismaïla Sarr, who I think will likely be that first starter now that Elise is gone. We've also got Matthias França. Now, a lot of Palace fans are raving about França, and I think he is a really, really exciting player.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you say, I think he is. He's got a lot of potential, and he's one of those where he could really thrive in this Palace side, as you say, stepping up to fill the gap left by Eze. I mean, Elise, sorry, Eze hasn't gone anywhere.
Yet.
Don't worry, Palace fans, yet. Yeah, it's a very strong right-hand side, and I'm really, I think it's positive for Palace.
Yeah,
they've still got such a strong right-hand side, despite the fact they've lost a star player.
Well, France is a very similar mould to Elise. He is a right winger by trade who can who can play attack midfield, who loves to drift inside, who is stronger on their left foot, so likes to play those balls in behind or cut in and have a shot. For me, he's a very, very exciting player, and if I was a Palace fan, I'd want to see him starting over Ismaïla Sarr this season. I think that potential for France is slightly higher. Since we're on the right attack midfield spot, we might as well stay there. They've also got Eboye and Raksaki. Who do you think is more likely to stay and play, or do you think they're both going to go out on loan?
This is a very tough one. I think this will come down to preference. From what I've seen, from what I know, I would favour Raksaki, but I'm sure there'll be Palace fans out there that say, that Eboye, whatever his name, Malcolm, should play. I think it's one of those. Maybe I think you keep one loan, one out, or I don't see both staying.
I'd keep Raksaki because from what he's played, what I've seen at Charlton this season, the fact that he's incredibly two-footed, so he could play on both flanks.
Yeah.
He's a very exciting player, dynamic winger, as I say, versatile. For me, he'd add a bit more to this Palace side. I think that Malcolm Eboye would probably benefit from another loan move, and
potentially.
Probably a championship move. I think he was on loan in League One last season, but the team he was at escapes me now. But a championship move would be really nice for him if they can find a team that fits what the similar sort of role to who he play at Palace. I think that would be quite nice. He looks like a really talented player. We obviously saw that at Derby. They then picked him up for relatively cheap when Derby was struggling. I think they'll now look to loan him into the Championship and then build from there. Yeah. But he certainly looks like a very talented player, as does Raksaki. The other attacking options then, we're doing this back to front, but oh well.
Never mind.
Forward line, you've got Mateta, Edouard and Jordan Ayew.
I
don't see loads of issues here. The only issue I do see is that Odsonne Edouard is linked with moves away. Now, if Edouard does leave, that leaves you with a bit of an issue because, yes, Mateta had a great end of last season, but he's only had that's his only great spell I've seen of him at Palace or even in his whole career. So there are a few concerns. If that form doesn't translate and Edouard leaves, there's not really any other option there because I don't think Jordan Ayew's incredible anymore. And to be fair, he never was incredible, but he's definitely...
He does a shift. He's done well for Palace. When he's one of those where he's not going to play every game, but when he does come in, he's going to give you a very strong performance. And he has done that, under Glasner at times. As you say, it is going to be very interesting to see how Jean-Philippe Mateta plays next season. Obviously, as you say, incredible run of form. Everyone had him in their FPL team towards the end of the campaign. True. I'm very intrigued to see whether he can carry that on under Glasner.
Yeah, and I don't think they've got any issues in that striking area. No. If Edouard leaves, then I think they need to bring in a replacement, and I think they'll need to look around. Maybe Max Boyer, Hoffenheim, someone like that. Just a young forward who could compete with Mateta would be nice. Then on that left attacking midfield spot, currently it's Eze. Obviously, Eze linked with a move away to Tottenham, but they have also now got Daichi Kamada, as you say. So that's not too bad. I think though losing Eze would be a huge loss because losing both Eze and Elise, you lose a lot of what made that attack tick last season.
You do, but I think it's one of those. If you replace it well enough, then you should be okay. But it is very hard to replace two players that are so good at football.
Yeah, exactly. And while I think on paper a France-Kamada partnership, sounds really exciting. It is just so unknown because we've not got any evidence that those two players can perform in this league. There's no tangible proof that these two will work well together, but it does look nice on paper. So I think there's a lot to be positive about for Palace fans, but I don't think that if they lose Elise, they've already lost Elise, if they lose Eze as well, I think they are in a very unknown situation and their attack may be quite dysfunctional to start the season because they're going to have to learn to play with each other. in the way that Eze and Elise had so much time to do so. Let's move further back in the team then. Across that midfield four, so at left wing back you've got Mitchell and you've got Jeffrey Schlupp. Not an ideal backup, but Schlupp will do a job if need be.
Exactly, and Mitchell was quality last season.
Yeah, if there is a left wing back who you really like the look of and the money's there, then I'd say make the move, but only if it's in the right market, only for the right price, and only if it's a good fit.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that's a paramount transfer. That's a necessity. In the midfield, then you've got Wharton, Hughes. You've also got Decore, Lerma, and Hamada. I really like this midfield. To be honest, and this might sound outrageous, but Decore and Wharton as a pivot for me is one of the strongest midfielders in the league.
Yeah, that is really
I think
good.
Bar City, Liverpool, Arsenal. That's it.
Yeah, Chelsea on paper.
Well, Chelsea haven't shown that. So
good point.
Those three. Bar that,
100%.
there's not many midfields that are as good as this Palace midfield. So they've definitely got a lot of strength there.
Yeah, on pitch, that pivot has been superb. We know how good Adam Wharton is, and he is just going to continue to get better. Decore, a very, very solid player as well. Then you look at backup. Will Hughes is a tidy footballer.
He put in a shift last season. Decore was out injured for the second half of the campaign, so he didn't really play under Oliver Glasner, I don't think. So it was Hughes and Wharton for a lot of that. And the thing that excites me now is that Adam Wharton looked really creative and really strong with Will Hughes next to him. And obviously Hughes did play that deeper role, but not to the same extent that Decore will. And if Decore is playing so well defensively, it does give Wharton a little bit more licence to get on the ball, get forward and create opportunities. And I think we'll start to see Wharton blossom even more this season.
Huge.
Yes, definitely so. And then at right wing back, you've got Munoz and you've got Joel Ward. So they've had to pray to the heavens that Munoz doesn't get injured, but I'm sure Ward can come in and do a job if need be.
Yeah.
At least at right wing back, he's slightly higher up the field.
Can't stick it in his own net.
Well, he can. It's Joel Ward, but he's further away. It'd be more difficult. But yeah, Munoz, one of the most exciting attacking fullbacks in the league,
brilliant.
coming in January. He had a really strong season, so they'll be hoping to see more of the same from him. In the back three then, at left centre half now, you're solid because you've got Chris Richards and you've got Chaddy Riyad. You've got Anderson, you've got Rob Holding who play that central role. And then at right centre half, you've got Gurhey and Klein. Now, the big issue there is Joachim Anderson and Mark Gurhey have both been linked with moves away. Obviously, it'd be paramount to replace those, but I think it'd be smart to be a bit proactive about that and go and sign someone before either of those leave.
Maybe.
Because I think you can bring in a centre half who's similar quality to those two and who will rotate in those positions, be a good backup option before those two need to leave. So there's definitely that option there. I think Holding, Klein, they're okay backups. If they're having to play significant football this season, that's a real concern. So they're hoping that Gurhey and Anderson either don't leave, they sign replacements. If they get injured, that's also a worry. So I think a backup would be nice in those positions. And we'll talk about an option in a moment. In goal, they're sorted. The big question, though, is who's actually going to start. Because they've got Dean Henderson, they've got Sam Johnston. Obviously, Johnston was out injured for the second half of the season, so Henderson came in and played for Glasner. And he looked really solid. So can you justify Johnston coming back into the side? And if Dean Henderson continues to start, does Johnston look for moves
potentially
elsewhere?
Yeah, I would opt for Henderson. I think, as you say, he looked good when he came in towards the end of the campaign. I would stick with him. It's one of those, I don't think you need to change it if it's working. And that's unfortunate for Johnston. I think he's a decent keeper as well. But either way, it's two good goalkeepers. But I think, Johnston may look for a move away. I feel like the thing for Palace is now they've done some business. Their next business is going to be dictated on how many players they lose.
Yeah, because if they lose Eze, they need a left-sided attacker. If they lose Gurhey, Anderson, they need a defender. So let's talk about options then. And obviously Wharton, I don't think they'll lose yet, but they've got to start planning ahead for that.
100%.
Because I could see a big bid coming in next summer. But let's have a look then at options. Because start on this left flank for a player who seems to be very close to a move to Aston Villa, someone they've been linked with strongly over this window. It's Antonio Nusa, the Norwegian winger playing at Club Brugge at the moment. He is an incredibly exciting player. His FB Ref profile is on screen now, and it is just a sea of green. For what you need from a left winger, he is absolutely perfect. I mean, his progressive carry, successful take-ons, both in the 99th percentile, they show his dribbling ability. He can take players on, he can get past them, and that's so crucial in the Premier League, having players who can make something happen. When a lot of teams will have very strong defences, if you've got a player who's an absolute handful for defenders, that's exactly what you need to break down those low blocks. 94th percentile for touches in attacking penalty areas as well, so he loves to get forward, loves to get involved in the play. The other thing that he adds is that he can also play as a striker. Admittedly, he's better out on the left wing, but he does offer you a little bit of rotation if Mateta's not performing through the middle. So they've got options there. And yeah, he's had a fantastic season for Club Brugge. He looks really exciting. He was strongly linked with Tottenham. That move fell through. He's now been most closely linked with Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Obviously, he failed that medical at Tottenham, and that will be a slight concern, but I think it's worth the gamble for Palace. If you're getting a deal done around that £30 million mark for Nusa, I think that's a fantastic deal, especially if you've lost Eze, because you know, in the long run, I think Nusa may well have a higher ceiling than Eze. Yeah. Obviously, right now, it will impact Palace, because I think that Nusa isn't quite on that level yet, and they are different players as well. You know, Eze's a much more creative player, Nusa's a lot more direct. So that will be something to adjust to, and actually could lean into, as I say, this Palace potential change, because they have now got more out-and-out wide players. So that's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. But I think Nusa would be one hell of a coup.
Yeah, definitely. You know, he's one I really like him, because he's a very, very dangerous player, but he's just so direct. You know, we see too many wingers running into corners or turning around when they can't against a defender. Nusa doesn't. He takes a defender and goes, all right then, I'm going to take you on. He's going to beat you. He's going to get in, as you say, he wants to get into that penalty area. He wants to attack defences. And that is very key as a footballer. And if you have a winger that not only tries to do that, but is successful in doing that, you're going to have a hatful more chances for your front line.
Yeah, he scores goals, he creates chances, shot creating actions in the 90th percentile, 5.35 per 90. Now, obviously, you've got to take these stats with a pinch of salt, because it's in the Belgian Pro League, but it does show that, and we have seen in the past how different leagues, you know, that adaptability isn't always there, but if they can make that work, and he can adjust to the Premier League, he's going to be a very, very dangerous player. Very difficult to deal with. And yeah, I think that would add a huge amount of threat into that Palace front line. So for me, that's a no-brainer. Go and make that deal happen. He'd be a fantastic addition to this Palace side. And then as that rotation defender, I've thrown in Trevor Chalobah. Now, not worked out for Chalobah at Chelsea. They've frozen him out of the club. They've not involved him in the pre-season until they want him to move on. So I think a deal is very doable here at around that £20 million mark. If they can make that happen, I think that'd be a really good signing. I think Chelsea would be wanting closer to 40, but if you can bring that valuation down, considering how desperate they seem to be to sell him, I think that would be a really nice move. Obviously, his FBref profile's a little bit weird because of, you know, how weird Chelsea have been this season. So yes, his aerials one are a little bit low, and I do think that is a slight weakness in his game, that aerial ability. But his tackles and tackles one are both high, or fairly high. Passes completed up in 86th percentile. Again, that's really strong, and clearances in the 81st. So he has had to be a bit of a no-nonsense defender at times this season for Chelsea, but I think he can play on the ball. We have seen that. He can play as a defensive midfielder. I think in a team that isn't Chelsea, his passing numbers would look a lot better. His pass completion is still really high, but he's clearly not feeling confident on the ball. The fact that he's 0.0 switches per 90, so he hasn't done a single switch this season. So perhaps range of passes, progressive passes aren't really there, progressive carries. So they're the sort you would be slightly worried about him in possession. But I think a lot of it will come down to confidence, because at Chelsea, when he's come at the end of the season, it's been very much, you know, for the last 20 minutes to come in and just head everything away and clear everything away. It's not really about getting the ball down and playing football. But I think when you unlock that, because he has shown he can play football, he is good with the ball at his feet. I think if you can unlock that, he will be very very useful for Crystal Palace.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, Chalobah has been one of those players that he's always done at putting a shift for Chelsea. I mean, he's had his moments where, he hasn't been very good, but, you know, you think back to Chelsea under Thomas Tuchel, Chalobah in that Tuchel back three was very, very strong when he was called upon. He put in some big shift. You know, he's played in cup finals for Chelsea. He's a player that, you know, has been there and he's done it. He's he's quite an experienced player, to be completely honest. And as you say, you know, his numbers might not look the greatest, but he'll put in a shift. He's a decent player, and in a team that aren't, you know, all over the place, he might thrive in a more stable environment where they actually want him.
Definitely. I think, obviously, well, as you mentioned there, his ability to play in the back three, that's going to translate really nicely into Oliver Glasner's system. And I think it'd be a really nice addition. The only thing they do have an issue with is that they are going to have to stave off competition for his signing from Manchester United. However, if Chalobah's assessing his options right now and going, do I want to join a Manchester United side where I'm behind Maguire and Yoro in the pecking order? He might be ahead of Maguire, who knows? Does he want to join that and possibly be paid more money? Or does he want to go to Crystal Palace, be part of a bit of an exciting project, probably play a lot more football, because he'd be able to rotate between that central centre-half and that right centre-half role quite seamlessly? For me, I think the Palace option is more exciting for him.
Yeah, definitely.
And if he's leaving Chelsea to get more game
season.
time,
Yeah,
mainly because he's being forced out the door, I think that Palace would be a really nice fit for him.
Yeah, I think these mean they'd both be two very good deals for Palace. But overall, I think Palace are looking really strong going into next season.
Yeah, definitely. I do think they've done well so far to try and accommodate for Elise leaving, try and accommodate for Eze leaving. Obviously, as I say, it's indeed. Obviously, it's very difficult to say whether that's going to be successful because it's hard to tell. Will Sarr come in and play as well as he did in that Watford team? Will França have a breakout season? Will Kamada be able to do it in the Premier League? There's a lot of unknowns, but it looks positive for Palace, and I think they'll be hoping to build on what was a really strong 10th place last season.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel for Palace that they, the same with Bournemouth, is I think they could be a massive victim of consequence. They've finished 10th, but to get into that top 10 is the next step, and it is so difficult because the competition in that top 10 is very, very strong. In order to get in there, they're going to have a stellar season, and I worry for them that they could play really well and still end up finishing where they finished last year.
Yeah, personally, if they'd kept Elise and they keep Eze, I think they'd have been in the conversation for Europe. I think without that and with the unknown in their attack this season, I think it's very difficult to say they're going to finish in Europe. I think they could still. If it goes again,
Glasgow's a European manager.
Well, exactly. And if France, has a breakout season, if as I say, Kamada, all these players play really well, if Mateta keeps up in his good form, then Palace could definitely be up in the conversation. The other thing it's going to depend upon is whether how those other sides perform. If Chelsea keep losing 4-1 to Celtic every week, one, I'll question what league they're in, and two, that'll start to see them slip down the table. And if other big sides are failing, Palace are there to sweep up. So they've got an opportunity this season. I think without Elise and Eze, it's going to be very difficult now to get to Europe. Obviously, Eze may still stay, and that'll be very interesting to see. But I don't think they'll get into Europe this season. But I think they'll still be in around the conversation for top 10.
Yeah, spot on.
Should be very interesting to see what happens this season, and maybe make a run at a cup. That would be quite exciting.
That would be good.
But that's everything I think for today's video. There are loose predictions and preview for Palace this season. If you're enjoying these previews or haven't watched them at all, there's going to be one on screen now where we speak about Chelsea. So it's a very long one. So if you want to watch us go on and on about Chelsea signings, that's on screen now. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.